It's getting wild in the WNBA. The Chicago Sky just fired Angel Reese, and the statement they dropped is just as shocking.
The Sky made a statement saying, the Chicago Sky values the safety, respect, and well-being of every player. We are committed to accountability so our players can stay focused on playing basketball.
So how does a star like Angel Reese end up out of the league overnight? Well, it all started with one statement she made that changed everything. Let me break it down. The shocking announcement. The basketball world was shaken when reports emerged that Angel Reese, the rising star of the Chicago Sky, had been released from the team in what analysts immediately described as the most unexpected roster move of the WNBA season. The announcement did not come through a gradual buildup of speculation, but dropped suddenly, with no forewarning to fans or even many within league circles. The official announcement, described by reporters as curt and direct, was met with disbelief because Reese had shown strong performances for the Sky in her first season. Her rebounding numbers placed her among the league leaders, and her energy consistently changed the tempo of games. That such a player could be abruptly cut raised questions about the internal decision-making within the Chicago franchise. Journalists covering the WNBA noted the unusual timing, as no immediate trade or acquisition had been announced, to explain why the Sky would part ways with a player who was central to their rebuilding strategy. Within hours of the announcement, fans flooded social media platforms, registering a combination of anger, confusion, and speculation. Many pointed to Reese's outspoken nature, recalling how she had been candid in interviews about the pressures of being one of the most visible young stars in the league. One of the most widely circulated clips came from an interview in which Reese reflected on her role in bringing unprecedented attention to women's basketball.
I think so many people are watching women's basketball right now. It all started from the national championship game, and I've been dealing with this for 2 years now. And understanding, negative things have probably been said about me, but honestly, I'll take that because look where women's basketball is. People are talking about women's basketball, but you never would think that we'd be talking about women's basketball. People are pulling up to games. We got celebrities coming to games, sold out arenas, just because of one single game.
The words carried a prophetic tone, as if Reese herself foresaw the scrutiny and backlash that her confidence and charisma would inevitably attract. In another interview, she appeared visibly tense, and her tone carried clear signs of frustration.
I think that just goes to where I'm from. In Baltimore, the person in front of you is not supposed to bust your ass, respectfully. So I kind of take it personal, Asia's a great player, and giving that respect to her, giving that respect to AT, the B's in the league, I don't want them to bust.
Commentators began to piece together potential reasons behind the move. Some suggested that Reese's outspoken comments about her role in the league had created friction within the locker room or with team executives. Others speculated that the Sky's management might have been uncomfortable with the level of media attention she attracted, particularly when narratives shifted away from team cohesion to focus almost exclusively on her. It was noted that in several press conferences, questions directed at coaches and teammates often returned to Reese's influence, overshadowing broader discussions about the team's collective goals. While these dynamics are not unusual in professional sports, they can create tensions when the balance between individual stardom and team identity is disrupted. The decision shook Reese, and the statement she released was deeply emotional, reflecting her pain and vulnerability in that moment.
I don't really get to stand up for myself. I have great teammates. I have a great support system. I got my hometown. I got my family that stands up for me. I don't really get to speak out on things just because I just try to ignore, and I just try to stand strong. I've been through so much. I've seen so much.
She continued.
So I just want to always just know, I'm still a human. All this has happened since I won the national championship, and I said the other day, I haven't had peace since then. And it sucks, but I still wouldn't change. I wouldn't change anything.
Still, the abruptness of the decision led many to conclude that the move must have stemmed from a breaking point. Reese had also been the subject of critical articles questioning her leadership style and interpreting her public comments as thinly veiled criticisms of her teammates. While she later clarified that her words had been taken out of context and expressed regret for how they were perceived, the controversy seemed to linger in the background. In another clip addressing the backlash, she attempted to explain her perspective and offered an apology.
I don't think I'm frustrated. I probably am frustrated myself right now. I think the language is taken out of context, and I really didn't intentionally mean to put down my teammates because they've been through this with me throughout the whole year. They've busted their ass just how I busted my ass. They showed up for me through thick and thin and in the locker room when nobody could see anything. So I would apologize to my teammates, which I already have.
The timing of this apology, contrasted with her subsequent release, fueled speculation that internal tensions were not fully resolved. Reports indicated that the Sky's management had deliberated extensively before the announcement, weighing both basketball considerations and organizational dynamics. The lack of transparency in their official statement left the public with little more than conjecture. Some journalists speculated that the decision was influenced by off-court issues, such as public image management, sponsorship relationships, or internal cultural disputes within the franchise. Others suggested that the move might have been an attempt to reset the locker room environment, establishing a clearer hierarchy that had been blurred by Reese's strong personality and immediate popularity. The official timing of Reese's release was especially startling because it occurred shortly after she had achieved notable milestones. Earlier in the season, she had been named to the WNBA All-Star roster, a recognition that validated her talent and work ethic.
We won today, but they just told me I'm an all-star. And I mean, I'm just so happy. I know the work I put in. Coming into this league, so many people doubted me.
The emotions captured in that clip illustrated both her pride and her gratitude toward the franchise, which makes the decision to part ways all the more baffling. To the public, it appeared contradictory. How could a player celebrated as an all-star one week be cut from her team shortly afterward? This contradiction became the centerpiece of debates across sports media. Commentators argued that no team would willingly part with a young all-star talent unless there were deeper internal reasons unrelated to performance. Former players suggested that Reese's outspoken nature and visibility might have tested the limits of what team executives considered manageable. Others speculated about interpersonal dynamics within the locker room, pointing to her earlier apology to teammates as evidence that trust may have been strained. While Reese herself had expressed respect for veteran players and emphasized the importance of building strong relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I want to play with the best. They're here out this here in Phoenix, but I would love to kind of come back to Chicago and trying to recruit and even just being able to take small things from them. I've learned a lot from them.
The nuances of leadership and communication within a professional sports environment can complicate such dynamics. Respect expressed publicly does not always translate into cohesion privately. The announcement also reignited broader discussions about the expectations placed on female athletes who carry both athletic and cultural weight. Reese's persona was larger than basketball. She had become an icon of confidence and individuality. Her gestures on the court, her candid remarks off it, and her unapologetic embrace of the spotlight made her a cultural figure beyond sports. Supporters praised her for refusing to conform to narrow expectations of humility and restraint, while detractors framed her assertiveness as arrogance. In professional sports, such polarizing personas can energize fan bases, but also create fractures within organizations unprepared to manage the intensity of attention that follows. The Chicago Sky suddenly found themselves at the center of this cultural debate, and by releasing Reese, they positioned themselves as attempting to diffuse rather than embrace the storm of attention. The initial reporting on the decision highlighted how little explanation was offered by the franchise. While official statements avoided detail, unnamed sources described the move as the result of irreconcilable differences between the player and team management. These vague characterizations left more questions than answers. Analysts dissected every press conference leading up to the announcement, searching for hints of tension between Reese and her coaches or teammates. Journalists replayed moments where her body language suggested frustration or where her answers to questions hinted at underlying dissatisfaction. In the absence of official explanations, speculation filled the void, intensifying the perception of secrecy and drama. What became clear almost immediately was the significant media value of the announcement. Within hours, sports networks dedicated special segments to the story. Headlines across outlets emphasized the word shock to capture the abruptness of the event. Digital platforms recorded spikes in search traffic for both Angel Reese and Chicago Sky, underscoring the magnitude of public interest. Analysts compared the scale of the reaction to past high-profile WNBA stories, noting that Reese's release had generated more online engagement than some championship results. This fact alone illustrated how central she had become to the narrative of women's basketball. Even in leaving, she commanded attention on a level few players achieve. By the end of the week, one truth was clear. The shocking announcement of Angel Reese's release from the Chicago Sky was not merely a roster move. It was a moment that redefined narratives, reshaped debates, and set the stage for one of the most closely watched journeys in recent WNBA history. Impact on the Chicago Sky. The release of Angel Reese from the Chicago Sky triggered an immediate reassessment of the team's trajectory, altering both its short-term competitive prospects and its long-term identity. Before the announcement, Reese had been positioned as a cornerstone of the franchise's rebuilding efforts. Drafted 7th overall, she was expected to anchor the team's interior play with her rebounding prowess and infectious energy. Statistically, she had already proven herself to be among the league's best rebounders, consistently recording double-digit totals that kept the Sky competitive in games they might otherwise have struggled to control. Her ability to generate second-chance opportunities and disrupt opponents' offensive flow had made her a vital piece of the roster. Without her, analysts immediately identified a void that would be difficult to fill. From a purely basketball perspective, the Sky's decision left a gap in both production and morale. Reese had quickly developed chemistry with teammates, particularly with Kalia Copper, the established veteran leader of the franchise. The partnership between Copper's scoring ability and Reese's inside presence offered the Sky a balanced formula, one that allowed them to compete against stronger rosters, despite being in a transitional phase. Removing Reese not only weakened the roster statistically, but also disrupted that budding chemistry. Commentators emphasized that the loss of such synergy in the middle of the season could have ripple effects, leading to inconsistency and diminished performance in crucial stretches of the schedule. Beyond the hardwood, the impact extended into the locker room environment. Teams are built not only on talent, but also on trust, and Reese's sudden departure introduced uncertainty among the remaining players. Teammates had spoken openly about their respect for her work ethic and energy. Reese herself had emphasized the importance of learning from veterans, making clear her commitment to absorbing lessons and contributing to a collective culture.
I asked them about how their experience was with USA basketball, because that's something I want to do in 2028 with that team. So just picking their brains, picking their minds, and I think it's really important to build relationships with other people. I respect them, I respect their game.
These statements suggested that her presence contributed positively to team culture, and losing that presence risked unsettling the locker room dynamic. Analysts warned that such instability could manifest in on-court miscommunication, reduced confidence, and uneven performances. The Sky's front office also faced immediate questions about the strategic logic of the decision. Rebuilding franchises typically prioritize young talent with marketability and upside potential, both qualities embodied by Reese. Cutting ties with a player who checked both boxes appeared contradictory to conventional strategy. Reporters pressed team executives for clarification, but their guarded responses only fueled speculation. The lack of transparency created a perception of disarray, with critics accusing management of undermining both the roster and the franchise's credibility. This perception was particularly damaging, given that the WNBA is in a critical growth phase, where every team is expected to contribute to the league's overall momentum. By removing a rising star, the Sky risked alienating not only their fan base, but also the wider community of supporters invested in the league's expansion. Financial considerations quickly entered the discussion as well. Angel Reese was not only a productive player, but also one of the Sky's most marketable assets. Her presence boosted ticket sales, merchandise purchases, and media coverage. Analysts pointed out that home games featuring Reese often drew larger crowds, with young fans in particular identifying with her personality and style. The release jeopardized that revenue stream, placing the Sky at risk of declining attendance and reduced brand visibility. In a league where margins are slim and every star contributes significantly to financial viability, the decision threatened to weaken the franchise's economic stability. Commentators described it as a move that risked short-term losses with no clear long-term gain. The media fallout added to the pressure on the organization. Headlines framed the decision as baffling, and television segments dissected potential consequences for the Sky's season. Former players and coaches weighed in, many suggesting that the team had created unnecessary challenges for itself. The narrative that took hold portrayed the Sky as unstable, a franchise struggling to manage both talent and culture. In professional sports, perception often influences reality, as negative narratives can discourage free agents from signing with a team or dampen fan enthusiasm. The Sky now faced not only the practical difficulties of replacing Reese's contributions, but also the reputational challenge of proving they remained a competitive and attractive destination. Another dimension of the impact was the psychological toll on the team's remaining stars. Kalia Copper, as the veteran leader, suddenly bore increased responsibility for stabilizing the roster and guiding younger players through the turbulence turbulence. Without Reese's presence to absorb some of the spotlight and share the burden of expectations, Copper risked being overextended both on and off the court. Similarly, role players who had relied on Reese's rebounding and energy to cover deficiencies were now expected to elevate their performances. Analysts warned that the added strain could expose weaknesses in the roster, leading to fatigue and declining results over the course of the season. The coaching staff also faced adjustments. Reese's rebounding and interior defense had been central to the Sky's strategy, allowing them to compensate for weaknesses in other areas. Without her, the team's defensive schemes had to be reconfigured, and offensive sets that relied on her ability to extend possessions required rethinking. Such mid-season tactical overhauls are difficult to implement successfully, particularly when morale is fragile. Coaches were now tasked with not only redesigning strategies, but also maintaining player focus in the midst of uncertainty. The challenge underscored how disruptive a sudden roster change can be, even when teams attempt to frame it as a necessary adjustment. Inside the locker room, the absence of Reese reshaped dynamics in ways both subtle and dramatic. Her energy, often described as infectious, had been a key motivator for teammates. She celebrated plays loudly, encouraged teammates vocally, and embraced the role of emotional spark. Teams often rely on such personalities to maintain intensity across long seasons, particularly during difficult stretches. Removing her left the Sky without one of their most consistent emotional anchors. While other players attempted to step into that void, analysts noted that it is rare for such roles to be replaced quickly, as emotional leadership is less about statistics and more about intangible presence cultivated over time. From a leadership standpoint, Kalia Copper suddenly carried an even heavier burden. Already the franchise's cornerstone, Copper had been balancing the responsibilities of scoring, mentoring younger teammates, and representing the team publicly. With Reese gone, Copper became the sole focal point for media attention and fan expectations. Observers pointed out that such concentration of pressure on one player can create fatigue and risk burnout. While Copper had proven capable of handling leadership, the loss of Reese meant there was little room for error or off nights. Every performance, every quote, and every decision now carried magnified significance for both Copper and the franchise as a whole. The coaching staff also faced renewed challenges. Reese's rebounding and defensive presence were not easily replicated, and tactical adjustments became unavoidable. Without her ability to control the glass, opponents were expected to exploit second-chance opportunities, forcing the Sky to compensate by adjusting rotations and altering defensive schemes. Offensively, the absence of her putbacks and interior scoring meant greater reliance on perimeter shooting, an area where the roster had been inconsistent. These adjustments demanded immediate implementation, straining both coaches and players. Analysts describe the situation as forcing a mid-season identity change, a process notoriously difficult to manage in professional basketball. The timing of the decision also compounded its impact. Coming during a period when the WNBA was enjoying increased national attention, the move appeared poorly timed for both the franchise and the league. Instead of capitalizing on the surge of interest, the Sky positioned themselves as embroiled in controversy. Analysts argued that the story overshadowed positive developments elsewhere in the league, shifting focus away from competitive achievements and onto internal turmoil. For a league striving to expand its audience, this shift represented a setback, as controversies often alienate casual fans rather than attract them. The chemistry within the roster also showed signs of strain. While public statements from players emphasized unity, insiders reported that the sudden change left many unsettled. For athletes who dedicate themselves to long seasons, trust in management decisions plays a crucial role in sustaining focus. When a popular teammate is released without transparent justification, it can erode that trust, planting seeds of doubt about organizational priorities. Even players committed to professionalism cannot easily ignore the emotional weight of such disruptions. The Sky's locker room, once described as energized by the infusion of young talent, now carried an air of uncertainty that analysts suggested could linger for months. Let's now take a look at Angel Reese journey and fans and WNBA reactions on new decision. Angel Reese's journey to becoming one of the most recognizable figures in women's basketball did not begin with her professional career, but rather with her ascent in college, where she built a reputation as a fierce competitor and dynamic personality. At LSU, she transformed into one of the most dominant players in the NCAA, using her height, athleticism, and relentless work ethic to command the paint. Her performances culminated in the 2023 National Championship, a moment that elevated her to national prominence. That game, remembered for both her stellar color play and the iconic gestures that sparked widespread cultural debate set the tone for her public persona as someone unafraid to embrace the spotlight and challenge expectations. It was this combination of talent and confidence that made her such a compelling prospect heading into the WNBA draft. Selected 7th overall by the Chicago Sky, Reese entered the professional stage, carrying both high expectations and significant scrutiny. Detractors questioned whether her game would translate effectively against the elite competition of the WNBA, while supporters believed she had the tools to become a generational talent. Her early games answered those questions emphatically. Reese quickly established herself as a rebounding force, often outmuscling seasoned veterans and showing instincts beyond her years. Her hustle plays became highlights on sports networks, and her ability to impact games even when her scoring was inconsistent earned respect from analysts. By mid-season, she had already proven that her collegiate dominance was not a fluke, but a foundation for professional success. Her journey, however, was never just about statistics. Reese embodied a new model of athlete, one who leveraged social media, embraced cultural influence, and spoke candidly about her experiences. She built a following that extended beyond basketball, becoming a figure of inspiration for young athletes and a symbol of unapologetic confidence. This visibility, while celebrated by many, also invited criticism. Opponents accused her of arrogance, while commentators debated the role of personality in professional sports. Reese herself leaned into the debate, famously acknowledging that she was willing to play the role of the bad guy if it meant drawing attention to women's basketball.
Take that role. I'll take the bad guy role, and I'll continue to take that on and be that for my teammates. Yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person, it's because of me too.
This self-awareness made her both polarizing and magnetic, ensuring that she remained central to the conversation about the sport's growth. The fans' reactions to her release reflected the depth of that connection. Almost immediately after the announcement, social media erupted with disbelief and anger. Hashtags supporting Reese trended across platforms, with thousands of fans demanding explanations from the Chicago Sky. Many framed the decision as unjust, interpreting it as punishment for a player who had spoken too freely or carried herself too boldly. For her supporters, Reese symbolized progress in women's sports, and her release felt like a setback to that momentum. Others expressed heartbreak, describing how they had begun following the WNBA specifically because of Reese's presence, and now felt uncertain about their continued loyalty to the league or the team. Reactions were not limited to fans. Prominent voices across sports and entertainment weighed in, many offering public support. Analysts on national broadcasts described the decision as one of the most shocking roster moves in league history. Former players emphasized that Reese had already proven herself on the court, making her release difficult to justify from a purely competitive standpoint. Cultural commentators argued that the controversy reflected broader issues of how outspoken women, particularly women of color, are treated in professional spaces. These interpretations elevated Reese's release beyond basketball, transforming it into a touchpoint in ongoing conversations about representation, equity, and respect in sports. WNBA players from other teams also reacted with solidarity, though most avoided direct criticism of the Chicago Sky. Instead, they focused on praising Reese's work ethic, talent, and resilience. Several hinted that they would welcome her as a teammate, fueling speculation about where she might land next. This public show of respect reinforced her reputation among peers and demonstrated that her influence extended beyond the boundaries of her own team. It also added pressure on the Sky, as the contrast between supportive peers and opaque management decisions widened the gap in perception. For many fans, this willingness to grow deepened their admiration. Social media platforms filled with posts praising Reese not only for her on-court dominance, but also for her maturity in addressing criticism. Supporters pointed to her transparency as a model of leadership, arguing that the ability to confront mistakes and move forward was just as valuable as athletic talent. In this way, the reaction to her apology served as a preview of how fans would later respond to her release, with empathy, support, and a sense of shared investment in her journey. Fans also drew on her collegiate legacy to frame their reactions. Many remembered how she had defied doubters by leading LSU to a national championship, embracing the spotlight in a way that polarized audiences, but undeniably grew interest in the women's game. Those same fans saw her release as another moment where her resilience would be tested, believing she would emerge stronger. They invoked her nickname, Bayou Barbie, as a rallying cry on social media, emphasizing her ability to turn scrutiny into strength. The familiarity of this narrative, Reese thriving under pressure, made it easy for supporters to believe that her next chapter would be even more successful. As speculation grew about Reese's next destination, fans imagined her thriving in new environments, envisioning how her rebounding and energy could transform other rosters. Sports talk shows compiled lists of teams that could benefit from her presence, while fans fans debated potential fits online. The prospect of Reese joining a rival franchise and achieving success added another layer of drama as supporters anticipated the narrative of redemption and resurgence. Such discussions ensured that even in the wake of her release, Reese's name remained at the forefront of WNBA discourse. The emotional weight of fans' reactions underscored how deeply Reese had become integrated into the identity of the league. Her release was not received as a routine roster move, but as a cultural event that stirred passion, debate, and solidarity. The intensity of these reactions reflected the investment fans felt in her journey, treating her success and struggles as shared experiences. In this way, the decision that ended her time with the Sky inadvertently reinforced her status as one of the most significant figures in women's basketball, a player whose story transcended wins and losses to embody broader themes of resilience, visibility, and representation. What do you think? Was Angel Reese treated unfairly, or was this a necessary decision for the Sky's future? Share in the comments and click on the cards on screen for more.